everyone. Welcome back to the deep dive. It's amazing how a book can really make you rethink things, and that's exactly what happened to me when I first read Rich Dad's Conspiracy of the Rich.
Yeah, that's definitely one way to describe Robert Kiyosaki.
Definitely a thought-provoking author, and that's why we're diving deep into his ideas today. We're going to explore some of the excerpts you sent us, focusing on his arguments about the financial system and what they might mean for all of us.
Sounds good. Let's jump right in.
So, one of the things that really struck me about Kiyosaki's book is his take on diversification. He actually argues against the traditional approach, the whole don't put all your eggs in one basket idea.
Right, he's definitely not afraid to challenge conventional wisdom. He claims that diversification actually gives people a false sense of security, especially in a volatile market.
Yeah, it's almost like he's saying that spreading your investments too thin can actually work against you. He even uses his own experience during the 2008 financial crisis as an example, saying that his wealth remains stable because he focused on cash flow instead of chasing capital gains.
Now, Kiyosaki's 2008 experience is definitely interesting, and it makes you think. But for the average person, ignoring diversification completely can be pretty risky. It's important to remember that diversification can be really beneficial for long-term growth, especially when you're thinking about retirement planning.
Right, it's all about finding that balance. But this idea of focusing on cash flow is really central to Kiyosaki's philosophy, and he has this really interesting anecdote about his oil pipeline investments that illustrates this point.
Oh yeah, he talks about how even when the market was tanking back in 2008, those investments kept generating steady cash flow for him through dividends.
Exactly. It shows how certain investments can be more resilient during those market downturns.
But again, it's important to keep in mind that what works for someone like Kiyosaki with his experience and resources might not be the best approach for everyone.
So diversification might not be the be-all and end-all solution, but it's not something to completely dismiss either.
Definitely not. It's about being strategic and informed about your investments, making sure they align with your personal financial goals.
And speaking of strategic financial decisions, Kiyosaki also talks a lot about the power of debt and how to use it effectively. He even makes this distinction between what he calls good debt and bad debt.
Right. This is where things start to get a bit more complex.
For sure. He gives this example of a student graduating with student loan debt, then getting a job and immediately accumulating more debt with a car loan, a mortgage, and so on. It really paints this picture of a system that can trap people in debt if they don't understand how to use it to their advantage.
Yeah, it's like the system is working against you if you're not financially savvy.
Exactly, and that's why Kiyosaki stresses the importance of financial education. Debt can be a powerful tool, but it can also be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing.
Absolutely. He uses real estate as a classic example of how debt can be used to build wealth.
Right, like using a mortgage, which is technically debt, to purchase a rental property that generates income.
Exactly. If you manage that property, well, the rental income can cover the mortgage payments and even provide extra cash flow on top of that. So in this case, the debt is actually working for you, not against you.
That makes a lot of sense. But I imagine it also takes a good amount of planning and understanding of the potential risks involved.
Oh, absolutely. Over-leveraging yourself, taking on more debt than you can realistically handle, can lead to serious financial problems. It's all about finding that balance and making informed, calculated decisions.
Which kind of brings us to another area where Kiyosaki challenges conventional thinking, his views on the Federal Reserve System. He's very critical of it, even suggesting that it creates money out of thin air, which can sound a little like a conspiracy theory to some people.
Yeah, it definitely raises some eyebrows.
Yeah,
But he does offer a pretty relatable analogy to explain this concept. He compares it to monopoly money.
right. How the rules of monopoly allow for unlimited printing of money, which leads to inflation within the game.
Exactly. And Kiyosaki suggests that the Federal Reserve's ability to essentially create money out of thin air has similar consequences in the real world, leading to currency devaluation and inflation.
It's a simplified analogy, of course, but it helps to illustrate the potential downsides of unchecked money creation.
Right. Now, to be fair, the Federal Reserve's role is to manage the economy, try to control inflation, and promote financial stability. But Kiyosaki and others would argue that its actions can sometimes contribute to economic instability rather than prevent it.
Definitely a complex topic with strong arguments on both sides. And to really understand this debate, Kiyosaki encourages us to look back at history. He draws a comparison between the deflationary depression that hit the United States in the 1930s and the hyperinflationary depression that Germany experienced before World War II.
He really believes that understanding those two distinct scenarios is crucial for navigating the current financial landscape.
It's fascinating to think about those two depressions side by side. The U.S. Depression was marked by falling prices, mass unemployment, and a shrinking money supply.
While in Germany, prices were spiraling out of control, making their currency basically worthless.
And Kiyosaki expresses concern that the U.S. could be heading down a path similar to Germany's by printing excessive amounts of money to try to solve current economic challenges.
Yeah, he's definitely sounding the alarm there. He even shares this vivid story from his time in Vietnam during the war.
Oh, yeah. He talks about witnessing a fruit vendor who was exchanging Vietnamese piasters and U.S. dollars for gold.
Exactly. It highlights how tangible assets can hold their value during times of economic turmoil when currencies are failing.
So he's suggesting that it's wise to consider assets with inherent value, not just rely on paper money.
It's about having a balanced approach, for sure. And this ties into Kiyosaki's analysis of the broader economic landscape. He argues that the traditional old economy is fading away and being replaced by a new economy driven by technology and innovation.
Yeah, he points to the decline of things like traditional retail and network television as examples of this shift. While at the same time, online businesses and renewable energy are on the rise. He even criticizes the education system, saying it's not preparing students for this new reality.
And he's not wrong. The job market is changing rapidly, with many traditional jobs disappearing and new ones emerging in fields like technology, digital marketing, and sustainability.
So adaptability and continuous learning are becoming more and more important.
Absolutely. And to thrive in this evolving economic landscape, Kiyosaki offers his concept of the BI triangle as a framework for success.
Right. This is his model for achieving financial independence. It consists of 8 integrities, and it's fascinating how it breaks it all down.
It's a really holistic approach to building a solid financial foundation. And we'll dive deeper into each of those integrities in the next part of our deep dive into Rich Dad's Conspiracy of the Rich. All right, so let's unpack those 8 integrities of the BI triangle, starting with mission. Kiyosaki really believes that having a clear purpose, a driving force behind your financial pursuits is absolutely essential.
So it's not just about making money, it's more about having a deeper why behind your actions.
Exactly. He encourages people to identify their personal mission, actually write it down and revisit it regularly. He even shares how he had a kind of a transformation himself. He realized that simply chasing profits as a manufacturer wasn't really fulfilling for him.
Right, it wasn't giving him that sense of purpose.
And he eventually discovered that his true passion was in teaching financial literacy and empowering others. And that ultimately became the mission of the Rich Dad Company.
So it's about aligning your financial goals with something that really resonates with you, something that goes beyond just accumulating wealth.
Absolutely. And that leads us to the next integrity team. Kiyosaki is a firm believer that no one achieves success in isolation. Surrounding yourself with the right people is key.
It's like that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Exactly. Building a strong team involves finding individuals with complementary skills and expertise. He emphasizes the importance of having a good bookkeeper, a reliable attorney, and other professionals who can offer guidance and support.
So it's about recognizing your strengths and weaknesses and then assembling a team that can fill in those gaps.
Precisely. And this naturally leads to the third integrity leader. Kiyosaki believes that true leadership isn't about barking orders. It's more about inspiring and empowering those around you.
This reminds me of his background in the Marine Corps, where leadership is really all about fostering teamwork, clear communication, and being receptive to feedback.
Yeah, he actually emphasizes that accepting feedback, even when it's negative, is crucial for growth as a leader.
So it's about constantly learning, adapting, and trying to improve your leadership skills.
Now let's shift our focus to the fourth integrity, which Kiyosaki calls the bottom line, cash flow. He puts a huge emphasis on understanding financial statements and being really clear on the difference between assets and liabilities.
And this is where his famous definitions come in, right? Assets put money in your pocket without you working, and liabilities take money out of your pocket even when you are working.
Yeah, those definitions are surprisingly simple, but they really challenge the way we typically think about assets. Kiyosaki points out that a lot of people mistakenly believe things like their homes or cars are assets, when in reality they often function as liabilities, draining their cash flow.
He uses a really clear visual to explain this concept. He talks about arrows on a financial statement that represent the flow of money.
Right. Assets like a rental property or a dividend-paying stock would have arrows pointing towards the income column.
While liabilities like a mortgage or a car loan have arrows pointing away towards the expense column.
It's a simple but powerful way to grasp the fundamentals of cash flow.
Okay, so we've covered mission team leader and cash flow. What about the other four integrities of the BI triangle?
Right, so the fifth integrity is communications, which focuses on strong communication skills. Kiyosaki believes that being able to sell, negotiate, and persuade effectively is super important for financial success.
He even goes as far as to say that sales solve all problems and that you can't really have sales without advertising.
He encourages people to get over any negative perceptions they might have about selling and to really view it as a valuable skill that you can learn and improve upon.
So it's not enough to just have a great product or service. You also need to be able to effectively communicate its value to others.
Absolutely. Moving on to the sixth integrity, we have systems. This one stresses the importance of establishing efficient and organized systems in both your business and personal life.
Kiyosaki makes this analogy to the human body with all its interconnected systems working together, the respiratory system, the circulatory system, the digestive system, and so on. If one system malfunctions, it can throw off the entire body.
Right. And it's the same with your finances. Having strong systems in place for things like accounting, marketing, operations, and legal matters is super important for ensuring everything runs smoothly and you minimize costly errors.
So it's about establishing those clear processes and procedures to really streamline operations and maximize efficiency.
Yes, the seventh integrity is legal, which focuses on understanding the legal framework and making sure you're operating within it effectively.
Kiyosaki suggests building relationships with legal professionals who can offer guidance and help you navigate that world, which can be pretty complex.
Yeah, he also points out that knowing how to utilize legal structures like corporations can give you some significant advantages.
So it's about protecting yourself, your assets, and your business interests.
Precisely. And last but not least, we come to the eighth integrity, product. This one emphasizes the importance of creating or offering something, a product or service that provides real, genuine value. Kiyosaki argues that while managing costs is definitely important, you can't just cut your way to wealth.
He stresses that having a truly great product or service is the foundation for generating revenue and achieving long-term success.
Now, it's important to note that Kiyosaki acknowledges that not everyone will be a rock star in all eight of these integrities. The key is to really assess your own strengths and weaknesses within this framework.
So it's a tool for self-reflection, almost a checklist for making sure you're building that solid financial foundation.
Right, and by putting in the work to strengthen your weaker areas, you can create a more well-rounded and resilient approach to your finances, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. It's a framework for anyone who wants to gain more control over their financial future.
It's about taking ownership and not just leaving things to chance. Now, Kiyosaki doesn't just talk about these concepts abstractly. He provides real-world examples, particularly from his experience in real estate.
Yeah, he's a big believer in real estate as a wealth-building vehicle. He emphasizes the importance of finding good deals, investments that will consistently generate positive cash flow.
He even shares some specific strategies, like focusing on B-class apartment buildings.
Right, those buildings that cater to the working class. He argues that they tend to be more resilient during economic downturns.
And he also stresses understanding market cycles, recognizing that there will always be those ups and downs.
Yeah, he uses this visual of a graph that shows mortgage resets, and he points out how certain periods, like he predicted for late 2011, could be particularly turbulent because of a large number of those resets coming due.
And he actually refers to the current period as the eye of the storm, suggesting that the worst might not be over yet. He believes that with all this money printing going on, the cost of living is likely to continue rising through things like increased taxes, mounting debt inflation, and higher retirement costs.
It's definitely a sobering outlook.
And he even challenges the conventional wisdom of aiming for, 5% to 12% return on your investments. He argues that with the right financial education, it's possible to achieve much higher returns, even what he calls infinite returns.
Now, that sounds pretty intriguing, infinite returns. How exactly does he define that?
Well, his definition of an infinite return is essentially money for nothing. It's about getting to a point where you've earned back your initial investment and then continue to receive positive cash flow from that asset indefinitely.
So it's like creating your own personal money-making machine.
Yeah, he uses examples from his own businesses and real estate ventures to illustrate this concept. He mentions how he started the Rich Dad Company with money from investors, and then within 3 years, he had returned 100% of their investment plus interest.
So now the business is generating cash flow without any of his own money tied up in it. That's pretty impressive.
And he's done something similar in real estate. He's bought properties that provide that steady cash flow and used debt strategically to make it happen.
So he's not just talking the talk, he's walking the walk.
Exactly. And it's not just limited to traditional investments either. He also mentions printing your own money, using paper assets like options, and even through investing in gold and silver mines.
He definitely sees those tangible assets like precious metals as a hedge against inflation and currency devaluation.
It's about having a well-rounded approach, right? Don't just passively put your money in a savings account or follow the stock market blindly. Educate yourself about how cash flow works and explore different ways to build your wealth.
He's all about taking control of your financial destiny. And he really emphasizes that financial education is an ongoing process. It's a lifelong pursuit.
But for someone who's just starting out, where do you even begin with all of this?
Well, Kiyosaki stresses the importance of learning by doing, making mistakes and constantly seeking out new knowledge. He outlines four main methods for learning.
Let's hear them.
First, he believes that teaching others is actually the best way to solidify your own understanding. Then there's learning by doing, which means taking action and not being afraid to make those mistakes. He also talks about group discussions and brainstorming with others. And finally, learning through simulations or games, which give you a safe space to practice and experiment.
And speaking of games, that's where his Cash Flow board game comes in.
Right. It's designed to be a fun and engaging way to learn about those principles of financial literacy and cash flow management.
So it's not just about reading books or going to seminars. It's about actually putting these concepts into practice in a way that's both interactive and enjoyable.
Definitely. It's about taking a hands-on approach to your financial education.
One of the things Kiyosaki really hammers home is the importance of understanding those three core components of a financial statement: the income statement, the balance sheet, and the statement of cash flows.
Those statements give you a snapshot of your financial health and help you track where your money is going.
But for a lot of people, those statements can be pretty intimidating and confusing. Kiyosaki tries to simplify things.
He breaks it down to that fundamental difference between assets and liabilities.
He really challenges the idea that your house is automatically an asset. He argues that unless it's generating rental income, it's actually a liability pulling money out of your pocket.
It's about shifting your perspective and understanding how the different items on your financial statement are impacting your cash flow.
So understanding that distinction between assets and liabilities is really crucial. But how do you figure out the strength of an asset? What factors should you be considering?
Well, Kiyosaki outlines a few things to look at when you're evaluating an asset, whether it's a business, real estate, a paper asset, or a commodity.
He stresses the importance of understanding those market cycles we talked about and finding assets that will hold their value even during a downturn.
Right. He suggests looking for things that have inherent constraints, maybe a limited supply or unique features that make them highly sought after.
And he also highlights the importance of investing in something you understand, building expertise in a particular asset class.
He gives examples from his real estate portfolio. He talks about focusing on those B-class apartment buildings, investing in properties with things like river frontage or scenic views, and building a solid reputation as a trustworthy operator.
He believes that building that credibility and trust with banks can actually open doors to better deals and financing options.
Makes sense. Now, one of the recurring themes in Kiyosaki's work is the power of leverage using debt strategically. He argues that it's a cornerstone of wealth creation.
But he's also very clear about the dangers of getting in over your head with debt.
Right. It's about finding that balance. He provides examples of how he uses debt to acquire income-generating assets like those apartment buildings, and how he structures those deals to make sure the cash flow is positive.
He's actually pretty critical of the traditional advice to live below your means. He argues that it can actually limit your potential to build real wealth.
He suggests that instead of just cutting back on spending, you should focus on increasing your income and buying assets that generate that passive income.
And he also pushes back on the idea that higher returns always equal higher risks.
He argues that with the right financial knowledge, you can find investments that offer both attractive returns and manageable risks.
He's not afraid to shake things up. He's even critical of the traditional financial planning industry. He says that a lot of financial advisors aren't wealthy themselves and are just following the script of the conspiracy of the rich.
He encourages people to become their own financial experts and to really think critically about any financial advice they receive, making sure it aligns with their goals and values.
And this is where understanding his cash flow quadrant becomes really important. It outlines those 4 different ways that people make money as employees, self-employed business owners, and investors.
Right. And he believes that shifting from that employee and self-employed mindset to the business owner and investor mindset is key for achieving financial freedom.
And he gives practical steps for making that transition, like building that strong BI triangle and becoming more fluent in the language of money. He also busts some common financial myths, like the idea that Social Security will be enough for a comfortable retirement, or that the stock market is a safe and reliable investment for the average person.
He's pointing out that relying solely on those traditional systems can be pretty risky and may not be enough to achieve true financial security.
But he doesn't just criticize. He offers alternative strategies and solutions for creating a secure financial future.
Absolutely. He emphasizes taking control of your financial destiny and not just depending on government programs or traditional institutions. He wants people to develop their financial intelligence, learn how to use debt effectively, and explore those alternative investments, like real estate businesses and tangible assets. Kiyosaki believes that a solid financial education is the key to navigating the complexities of the financial system and achieving lasting prosperity.
It sounds like a much more proactive and self-directed approach to personal finance.
Exactly. He emphasizes that you don't need to be a financial guru to start taking control of your money. And he offers tons of resources to help you on that journey. His books, his board games, his seminars, his online communities.
So there are lots of options for people who want to learn more and develop their financial literacy.
And before we wrap up our exploration of Kiyosaki's Rich Dad's Conspiracy of the Rich, I want to touch on something that he sees as super important, the ability to make mistakes and learn from them. He believes that mistakes are just part of the process and that being afraid to fail can actually prevent you from reaching your financial goals.
He's very open about sharing his own financial setbacks and the lessons he's learned along the way.
Right. He even suggests that sometimes traditional education systems stifle creativity and risk-taking by punishing mistakes instead of viewing them as valuable learning experiences.
So he's basically saying, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Embrace the learning process, get support from your team, and just keep moving forward. But how do you balance that willingness to take risks with the need for financial stability and security, especially in today's world?
That's a great question. And it's one that we'll be exploring in the final part of our deep dive. We'll delve into Kiyosaki's strategies for building that resilient financial foundation that can weather economic storms. And we'll talk about how you can apply these concepts to your own life to create a plan for achieving your own financial goals.
Welcome back to the deep dive. So as we wrap up our look at Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad's Conspiracy of the Rich, I think it's time to focus on how to build that solid financial foundation, create that house of bricks that can withstand any economic storm.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Kiyosaki is all about being prepared for those inevitable downturns. And he says having a solid plan, diversifying your portfolio and having reliable cash flow are key to riding out those tough times.
It's not just about hoping for the best, it's about being proactive and actually taking steps to protect yourself.
Exactly. And one of the core principles he keeps coming back to is the strategic use of debt. He's really big on making that distinction between good debt, which is debt used to acquire assets that generate income, versus bad debt, which is just draining your resources.
So it's not all debt is created equal, right? He encourages people to get smart about borrowing, using it as a lever to build wealth.
Exactly. He gives a lot of examples from his real estate investments.
Yeah.
Showing how he uses debt to purchase properties that generate rental income, basically paying for themselves over time and creating that positive cash flow.
So instead of being afraid of debt, it's about understanding how it can actually work in your favor.
But it does require careful planning and analysis.
Yeah.
Kiyosaki really stresses doing your due diligence, thoroughly evaluating potential investments, understanding the risks, and making sure the cash flow from that asset can cover the debt payments.
And he also talks about the importance of having a strong financial team around you, a knowledgeable attorney, a good accountant, a reliable real estate broker, people who can guide you and help you make informed decisions.
Building that network of trusted advisors is so important, especially when you're navigating these financial waters.
Definitely. Now, it's not all about real estate. Kiyosaki also encourages exploring other asset classes, things like starting businesses, getting into paper assets like options, or even investing in commodities like gold and silver.
He's all about diversifying that portfolio, spreading the risk, and creating some protection from those economic downturns.
Right, and he reminds us that markets are cyclical. There will always be those periods of boom and bust. It's just the nature of things.
Exactly. So he encourages people to take that long-term perspective and avoid making rash decisions based on short-term market fluctuations. He even suggests that economic crises can present unique opportunities for those who are prepared. those who have the financial knowledge to take advantage of those situations.
So basically, don't panic. Get educated, build that solid financial foundation, and be ready to adapt to those changing conditions.
And maybe even more importantly, Kiyosaki emphasizes that true wealth isn't just about money. It's about having that financial freedom and control over your time and your life.
It's about having the resources to pursue your passions, build a business that aligns with your values, and create a life with purpose, a life of abundance.
Absolutely. It's about using your financial knowledge as a tool to achieve your dreams and live life on your own terms.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Rich Dad's Conspiracy of the Rich, what's that one key takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
Well, there's this question that Kiyosaki asks that I think really captures it all. He says, if you could print your own money, what would you invest in to build a more secure financial future for yourself and your family?
It's a great question, right? It makes you think beyond just accumulating wealth.
Yeah, it encourages us to think about how we can use our resources to make a positive impact, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us.
It's a good reminder that financial intelligence is not just about personal gain. It's about empowerment, creating a brighter future for ourselves and for future generations.
We hope this deep dive has provided you with some valuable insights and that you're feeling inspired to take control of your financial journey. Remember, knowledge is the new currency, and that path to financial freedom, it starts with a single step.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deeper.